Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons being the 800-pound gorilla, the absolute dominating king of the tabletop role-playing game industry. And this is commentary. This is me bouncing off the springboard of Dungeon Craft's content. He did an amazing video that's linked below, and he really just he dropped the mic on why D&D 5e has absolutely utterly dominated the entire tabletop role-playing game industry and what that means. And I think when you watch that video, what you really see is that the best way to think about the TTRPG industry is that Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is a powerful moving juggernaut, right? And that juggernaut is up and running, and the entire industry literally sits on its shoulders as it runs. And basically, if anything goes wrong with that juggernaut, the rest of the industry isn't going to move, right? And the reality is, you really want to think of this as you want to think about the tabletop role-playing game industry as a robust, strong person running forward with the rest of the industry just sitting on their shoulders. Because that's really, and D&D determines the direction of the entire industry, and in many ways determines the fate of the entire industry. And that's just a fact. And I think a lot of people want to pretend that's not the case, but I think Dungeon Craft really, put it into incredible detail, and I'm going even into more detail on each one of his facets. So today we're going to talk about rules, and we're specifically going to talk about this rules attribute that Dungeon Craft called out, which is the Dungeons & Dragons player, right? The Dungeons & Dragons rules start players powerful and makes them tough to kill. It starts player characters powerful and makes player characters tough to kill. And why this is so important, and why it is helping D&D 5e, just like Paizo just packed up shop. They're like, we're not really a real brand. We just make we're literally making our Pathfinder material for 5e2. Because, which is an embarrassment, right? Netflix buys other people's content. Netflix doesn't send their content out to streamers. Streamers send content to them because they're king, right? It's the same thing with, if you start making your game for 5e, you are taking the knee, right? You are bowing down, right? And D&D don't bow down to nobody. It's one of the reasons why I love it, right? And Pathfinder's like, we're taking the knee, man. We need money. And we're just going to subjugate ourselves and embarrass ourselves and admit we're just a little we have 25 million in revenue, in 2021. But at the end of the day, we're just a little scrub shop that does, indie content under the 5e banner, just like anybody else on Drive-Thru RPG, right? It's incredible, right? So all right, so here's why, right? Here's why this is important. That D&D 5e says you start powerful, right? And that comes from, you have a race and you get powers from that. You have a class and you get powers from that. You have a background, you get powers from that. That's very distinctly different than a lot of other games, right? And they're like, by the time you get done filling those out, you're probably 4th or 5th level in any of those D&D then games that are running, or in D&D copy games, right? And so, and the reason why is, in D&D then, and in D&D copy games, there's a whole bunch of Dungeon Masters and Game Masters, in my opinion, who are like, I'm the DM, right? I'm the Dungeon Master, I'm the Game Master, I'm a deity in this world. But that's not enough for me to be hailed as a deity and have the powers of a deity. I can control every player character in the world, and I can control the weather. But it's really important to me that you as a player, your player character is a dirt farmer, and you start weak, and I'm going to kill you. And right now, West Marches is going nuts, right? People are playing, in D&D then and D&D copy, West Marches is the jam, and everybody loves it. I don't get it, right? You're like, hey, come on over to this game. You're going to start as a dirt farmer. You're barely a farmer who can hold a sword, and then I'm going to kill you as the Dungeon Master. How are they getting anybody to these games, right? That is just a terrible model, right? And actually, you could see it in the numbers. D&D then is just the barest fringes, and D&D copy is just the barest fringes, right? And so Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has really powerfully surged forward by saying, you have sat down at my table, and I, as the Dungeon Master, through these rules, are acknowledging that you are an important person, more important than me, the Dungeon Master, And I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to let you do cool things in session 1. You don't have to sit at this table for 6, 12, 18 months and earn the right to do something cool. You get to do something cool on session 1, right? It took you a half an hour to an hour and a half to create that character sheet. I'm going to honor your time, and I'm not going to kill you in the next 15 to 90 minutes, right? And I'm not going to expect you to go through a funnel of death, right? Like, it just, and 5e is crushing it. They are just surging forward by saying players are important, and the time you invest to make a character is important, and we're not going to make you suck for 3 to 6 to 9 months to reach a point where your character is cool. And it's working. It's working. You know, it's very exciting to see. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.